Why Hustle Halt? Hello, good day. Thank you for all of the appreciation of the music that we started with today. Before we get started, I'd like to review some of the accessibility features we will be using on Zoom. We will have closed captioning throughout our gathering in English and in Spanish. To access closed captioning in English, click on the subtitles button in your menu bar and select Show Subtitles. As you can see, today's session will also include ASL interpretation. Our interpreter, Hilda, will be spotlighted throughout the meeting. Today's briefing will be in English, and we will offer live Spanish interpretation. Everyone in the meeting will need to choose an interpretation channel in order to hear their language of choice. In order to choose that channel, click the button on your toolbar that says Interpretation. Please do that now. I'm going to ask one of our interpreters, Claudia, to share these instructions, as well as instructions for accessing Spanish language closed captions.
Buenos días. El día de hoy, la presentación será en inglés y en español. Así que todos en la reunión tienen la oportunidad de elegir el canal para poder escuchar el lenguaje de su preferencia. Para hacerlo, tienen que hacer clic en el botón de la parte inferior de su pantalla y elegir el idioma que quieran. También, si desean ver subtítulos en español, primero cambie el tamaño de la ventana de Zoom para que ocupe menos espacio en la pantalla y luego abra una segunda ventana del navegador y ubíquela debajo de su ventana de Zoom para que pueda ver ambas al mismo tiempo. Desde la segunda ventana, navegue a el enlace que estará en el chat, que es http://www.streamtextnet player 2. Gracias.
Thank you, Claudia, and thank you to our Spanish interpreters, Claudia and Alicia, to our captioners, Lorena and Laura, and to our ASL interpreter, Hilda, and to our Zoom support, Catherine. Thank you for helping us today. If you have any trouble with Zoom during the event, please feel free to message Catherine by reaching out to her directly or in the chat. You can email events@inatai.org. We will also drop a link to the PowerPoint for today's event in the chat in case accessing the PowerPoint directly is better for you. I love seeing the introductions that are already flowing through the chat. I'm going to take this time to introduce myself. My name is Emma Noyes. I'm a member of the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation. I am Inatai Foundation's Director of Research. In addition to leading our growing research division, I joined the Inatai team just in time to shape the way our staff and board reflect on and integrate the knowledge gained from our external evaluation, and also the way that we share the report back to grantees and our peers in philanthropy. That means that I'm working with each of our teams within Inatai to carefully review and metabolize the wealth of learning that grantees have offered us through anonymous feedback gathered and analyzed by Frontline Solutions. Our approach to evaluation includes deep commitment to gaining grantee perspectives on how well we live up to our values and sharing what we learn publicly. Thank you for joining us at our inaugural External Evaluation Results webinar, where we are living out this commitment. My visual description is that I am a Native American woman with olive-ish skin, a round face, brown eyes, straight brown hair with bangs, wearing royal blue and large rectangle rawhide earrings with blue jays painted on them. Behind me are the green and white walls of my office, plus a painting and a cactus. Just briefly, a quick note about why we provide visual descriptions in our meetings. Self-description is a helpful tool to be inclusive of visually impaired people in a meeting. More access means more equitable experience for everyone. I'm joining you today from the traditional homelands of the Spokane tribe in Spokane, Washington, which has served as a place of gathering, trade, and abundance for the Spokane area plateau tribes and the Spokane people since time immemorial. Please join me in introducing yourself if you haven't already in the chat and sharing the names of the nations whose land you are on as you join this gathering. You may have questions that come up during our time together that you'd like to ask either an Inatai team member or a Frontline Solutions team member. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to ask those questions about the report. It can be about Inatai's grant making or anything else that you're wondering. We ask that you share your questions with us using the Q&A tool so that we can ensure that both questions and answers are translated into Spanish and ASL. Please assist us in making our conversation as accessible as possible for everyone attending today and put your questions into the Q&A. We will use chat to share housekeeping announcements and for any troubleshooting requests. It's also a place where you can choose emojis to be able to share some of your reactions today. And I'm so grateful to seeing everyone sharing their own introduction in that chat space. I have the great pleasure of introducing you to our president and CEO, Nicole June Maher. Nicole joined the foundation in 2018. In her first year, she and our team visited all of Washington's 39 counties, most of them multiple times. Under Nicole's guidance, the foundation has applied what we learned from those early and ongoing community visits to shape our approach to building the organization, to creating values-driven investment office, and to begin our equity-centered grant making. By the end of 2022, Inatai Foundation has made more than $220 million in grants, with more than 80% of funding supporting people of color organizations. Before Inatai Foundation, Nicole led Northwest Health Foundation, where she was a champion of supporting racial justice, policy change, and community-based political power in Oregon and Southwest Washington. Prior to that, Nicole served as the executive director of the Native American Youth and Family Center, or NAYA, which provides wraparound family services for American Indians and Alaska Native communities in Oregon and Southwest Washington. Nicole has often shared that what she loved most about NAYA was the privilege to be accountable to her community and to support so many different leaders in being part of realizing their dreams and aspirations for themselves, their families, and people NAYA serves. Nicole is also very proud of her Alaska Native heritage and her deep roots in Alaska, Oregon, and Washington. She's a mom of 3 and lives in Kitsap County on the ancestral homelands of the Suquamish people. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much, Emma. It's a joy to be here with you today. I am Nicole June Maher, and I will begin with a visual description as well. I'm here today from my home office, surrounded by pictures I love, including one of my grandmother for whom I am named after. I'm wearing a black dress. I'm wearing my favorite basket earrings. I have dark brown hair and gray eyes that are described by my teenage children as piercing. We are offering this webinar today to share the results of our first evaluation report, which was just published this Monday. This evaluation includes feedback from more than 100 grantee organizations and shares where we can grow and improve to better support their work throughout Washington. In philanthropy, when you hear the word evaluation, you often assume that it is the community, the organizations, and the leaders being evaluated. This is different. This evaluation is of us. How are we showing up? How do we practice our espoused values? Are we a good partner to organizations that we are in service of? Evaluations are one way that we can remain accountable to grantee organizations and share with other funding partners what we have learned along the way. We hope you leave this webinar today with a better understanding of what it's like to work with us through the lens of grantee organizations and an understanding of the work ahead. But first, let's start with a little celebration. This is our first event since changing our name to the Inatai Foundation. You may have caught this news earlier in the month when it became official. Inatai is the Chinook Wawa word that means across or other side. The word Inatai expresses our belief that powerful communities will move our state towards equity and justice. We thank the Chinook Nation for granting us permission to use this word. And we are thrilled to have some tribal council members and representatives from the tribes here today. Gunesh Chish. We are at an important point in our growth as an organization. In addition to changing our name, we have, in less than a year, redefined our values, begun to set our long-term strategies through a 50-year vision and framework, and introduced a new mission to transform the balance of power to ensure racial justice and equity across Washington and beyond. This evaluation was conducted and finalized during this period of evolution for our organization and marks the end of what we have lovingly called our startup years. Our next chapter would not have been possible without everything we have learned from hundreds and hundreds of community leaders that we have gotten to know throughout the state, and many of you are here today. We have learned so much about the work happening across Washington during community visits, in grant applications, in conversations with our team, at our convenings, and now through this report. We are grateful for every story, every piece of wisdom, every thoughtful reflection, and especially the hard lessons that folks have gifted us with. Our team has gone through many cycles of listening, learning, making mistakes, adjusting our work accordingly. And I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who've provided feedback in one way or another. You have helped us get here. You are our first teachers, and we have deep gratitude for you. This evaluation is a little bit different than a conversation during a community visit or an update in a grant report. Organizations were invited to speak confidentially about their experience with us. Frontline Solutions, our evaluation partners, interviewed or surveyed more than 100 grantee organizations in total last year. We do not know who participated in the evaluation. What we do know is that Frontlines made sure we included leaders of many ethnic and cultural backgrounds, lived experiences, and organizations from across the state, and ensuring that folks were from many different sizes of geographies and many different types of communities. As a foundation that has always strived to be statewide, community-driven, and equity-focused, we were thrilled to hear that our intentions felt true to a large majority of respondents. Folks appreciated our people-first approach, and they said that they felt trusted as the experts of their work. And even though we believe we still have much to learn about our state And we certainly have a tendency to focus on our own flaws and shortcomings. We were surprised and appreciative to hear so many grantees ask us to share our learnings and practices with our peers in philanthropy. This is not to say that we are above some of the very valid criticisms about philanthropy as a field. If you have already read the report, you might have noticed that some organizations had a different experience with the Inatai Foundation. Leaders based in rural areas and smaller and mid-sized cities felt less engaged with us when it comes to learning alongside our team, and less engaged as it pertained to opportunities to connect with us beyond the grant-making process. Black and Indigenous leaders and leaders in large cities were slightly less likely to agree that Inatai demonstrates a true commitment to racial justice. While overall 81% of organizations said that we celebrate their work and humanity, only 65% of organizations with Black leadership had that experience, a notable difference. Philanthropy has excluded and overlooked the leadership of Black, Indigenous, and rural communities time and time again. Washington is no different, and the underinvestment in these communities is staggering. While we are proud that we have made significant financial investments in these communities, these results matched our own worries and reflections about how we show up. These findings only affirm that we must continue to double down on building relationships, earning trust, and strengthening our ties with Black and Indigenous leaders, as well as leaders in rural areas. Listening and learning is our forever work, because the fact is, if we say we're going to listen to people, and if we say we're going to serve the people most impacted, we need to show that by our actions. Earlier, I mentioned our 50-year vision and plan. This 50-year vision was created with thousands of insights from grantee organizations across the state. They tell us what's standing in the way of their ability to build long-term power while reimagining a different world that they know is possible. Our vision is a Washington that is transformed by true community power. Our role at Inatai is to resource, fund, leverage, and amplify, doing everything we can to make this vision a reality. As we work towards this future, we will continue to be a work in progress. Some may think progress for us means getting an even better evaluation result the next time around. I'm thinking about progress in a different way. I am thinking about progress from the perspective of folks feeling truly comfortable sharing honest feedback with us in the most direct and honest way. That may even mean that this will be the most flattering evaluation report that we ever get. While appreciative of the high praise we received, I am also reflective that it may be because we are new, because we are offering new resources, and because we focused explicitly on the communities that are so often overlooked and who have been deeply underfunded. The truth is, perception of us will shift. As we get to know grantee organizations and earn their trust, leaders will hopefully feel even more comfortable giving us honest and constructive feedback. Other people along the way may become more critical of us because they will not like the direction we are going. As our work becomes more focused, more unapologetic about a future where powerful communities are driving equity and racial justice work in Washington, those who are interested in upholding the status quo, they may not be on board with the work that we are doing. Those who have benefited from inequitable systems and unfairly wielded power may become oppositional. Our commitment is to the communities to whom we are accountable. We will continue to be propelled forward with clarity and purpose to resource and support the powerful communities across Washington who have always deserved resources and respect. I appreciate that you're here with us today. There are a million places you could be, and you chose to be here to learn and reflect with us. I will turn things back to my colleagues in the Frontline team. Please know you don't have to wait until the next evaluation to offer insights and learning. We always welcome your feedback, your stories, your insights, and your reflections anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. The moment is here. I now have the pleasure of introducing you to Frontline Solutions. Frontline Solutions is a Black-founded, Black-led consulting firm that brings together expertise and lived experience from across the country. One of the leading reasons why we selected Frontline Solutions as a partner in carrying out this evaluation is that they are leaders in a movement to advance racial equity and disrupt harmful power dynamics in the field of learning and evaluation. Frontline Solutions team, thank you for joining us, and please go ahead and share your individual introductions and tell us about where you are joining us from today.
Excellent. Hello, everybody. My name is Amber Banks. I use she, her pronouns. I'm calling today from the ancestral homelands of the Cherokee, Shawnee, and Yuchi people. I am a Black woman with light brown skin and curly brown hair and brown eyes. I am wearing a polka dot dress, Black with white polka dots, and my Black background is blurred in my home office. I'll pass it over to Chanel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chanel Rollins, and I am a consultant with Frontline Solutions. I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland, which is also the home of the Piscataway and Susquehannock peoples. I go by the pronouns she, her. My visual description is that I'm a lighter-skinned Black woman with long braids and brown eyes. I have on a white t-shirt and gray jeans along with my Apple Watch. My background is blurred and includes a Black wall and stair railing. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Hafiza Omar.
Thank you, Chanel and Amber. Hi, everyone. Grateful to be here. My name is Hafiza Omar. I use she, her pronouns. I am a Southeast Asian brown woman with Black hair, and I'm wearing a brown golden-ish sweater, and I have some dark purple lipstick on. And in my background, I'm in my home office, and there's some framed posters that I love. And I'm also a consultant with Frontline Solutions. I'm calling here from New York City, the land of the Lenape people, and specifically in Queens, which is the land of Matinecock people. Thank you.
Great. And Ashley, I'm not sure if you wanted to come off of video mute really quickly to introduce yourself as well before we continue with the presentation.
Thanks, Chanel. I don't know. Let me see if I can go off. Can I go off? Do you all see me? Okay. Hello, my name is Ashley Jones. I am an associate consultant with Frontline Solutions. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm calling in from Laurel, Maryland, which is the land of the Piscataway people as well. I am a Black woman with straight Black hair that is put into a ponytail right now, and I'm wearing a burgundy shirt, and my background is a wall with a white door. Also here to support my team and some tech for the webinar, and so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. All right, so we will dig right in. As you all see on this slide here, this is the makeup of the Frontline team who worked on Inatai's evaluation. And so Amber served as our project advisor, Jessica Barron as our project director, and along with Helly, Hafiza, Jessica, and myself as data and analyst leads, and Ashley served as our project manager for this work. Next slide, please. So at Frontline, we believe that evaluation is a tool for learning and liberation. Through our evaluation practice, we support clients to leverage data, learning, and storytelling as powerful catalysts for positive social change. We are rooted in humanizing processes and methodologies that center the voices and expertise of communities of color and other marginalized populations. We work in solidarity with other BIPOC and allied researchers and evaluators who are a part of a movement to advance racial equity and disrupt harmful power dynamics in the fields of learning and evaluation. We have 4 core values that really ground our approach to evaluation. The first of which is that we leverage data, learning, and storytelling as catalysts for positive social change. Second, we humanize the evaluation processes and methodologies by really centering the voices of those who are closest to the work. Next slide. Third, we know that expertise comes in many forms. And so by centering the expertise and experiences of those who have lived experiences along with those with academic and practitioner backgrounds, we are able to create opportunities for co-design and partnership through the learning and evaluation process. And then finally, we work in solidarity with other BIPOC and allied researchers as evaluators as a collective to advance equity and disrupt power dynamics that really undergird the field of learning and evaluation. Next slide. So here are our methods. And so we developed a set of questions to really frame our evaluation of the experiences of Inatai's grantees, staff, and board in 2 core areas. 1, policies, processes, and practices, and then 2, grantee support. Regarding Inatai's policies, processes, and practices, we set out to explore and develop an understanding of Inatai's values and approaches through its processes and practices and the growth edges in this space. We looked at and sought an understanding of the overall areas of growth for the foundation and any barriers in Inatai's pursuit of meeting its mission and purpose. Next slide. In terms of how we grounded our understanding of how the foundation supports grantees, we set out to explore how grantees are experiencing the foundation, if and how Inatai has lived up to its aspirations of supporting community-based assets, how grantees understand the foundation's mission and purpose, indicators of a good funding partner from grantees' perspective, and any hopes that grantees have for how the foundation can or should show up as a partner. Next slide. For our research design, the methodology approach that we used included value-driven grantee surveys to both single-year and multi-year grantees, as well as one-on-one interviews with grantees, staff, and board members. We also co-designed the surveys and the interview protocols with Inatai staff. Next slide. So before we really dig into the meat of the findings, we want to, at Frontline, thank everyone who participated in this body of work. The information and insights that we received throughout this process were invaluable. We had a total of 167 responses to the survey, with 114 responses coming from multi-year grantees, and then 53 responses coming from single-year grantees. That was a 58% response rate from multi-year grantees and a 38% response rate from single-year grantees. We interviewed 3 board members, 6 staff members, and 29 grantees. I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague Hafiza Omar to discuss the demographic information shared by survey respondents.
Great, thank you so much, Chanel. Yeah, I think we want to give a little bit more insight in who responded to the survey. So I will be going through some demographic information. As we mentioned, we have had 2 surveys, one for multi-year grantees and one for single year. This first chart shows the geographic distribution of Inatai's grantees and where they work. So you'll see that a single year survey respondents reported working across broad geographic contexts, or from local to statewide to national, and multi-year survey respondents reported working primarily in rural areas and medium-sized cities. So on the chart, you see the 2 pie charts on top of each other. And then we can look at the next slide. We also asked respondents to describe where the area where the work happens. And so you'll see that in this chart here, it's distributed across large cities, medium cities, suburban areas, and rural areas. And I'll just want to call out in the multi-year grantees, 50% of the respondents name medium-sized cities and rural areas as where their work happens. Yeah, I'll just pause a little bit so that people can see the pie chart, and then we can go to the next slide. So this chart really shows the identities held by respondents' organizations' leadership. And these are the following identities are held by Inatai grantee organizational leadership. And again, this is both for a single and a multi-year survey. The single year is in the inner circle and the multi-year is in the outer circle. You'll see that leaders, there's a diverse identities across leadership by Inatai's grantees organizations. And I want to also just name that for respondents that indicated other and chose to self-identify, their responses included federally recognized Indian tribes, survivors of domestic and or sexual violence, undocumented folks, former farm workers and agricultural workers, parents of children with disabilities, monastics, tribal urban health directors, seniors over 65 years old, veterans, and asylees. This just shows like the diversity of like leadership that many of Inatai grantees hold. And the last one is showing race and ethnicities that comprise over 50% of your organization's leadership. So this might be a little bit hard to see, but you can see, I'll just summarize it, that single year grantees, respondents reported majority BIPOC-led organizations, with substantive diversity among organizational leaders who have other historically marginalized identities. And so just want to share and show like the depth of different identities of leaders of organization that responded to our survey. So I wanted to share these demographic information to contextualize all these findings that we had and that what Nicole shared before. So I'm gonna pass it on to Amber to talk through the findings now.
Thank you, Hafiza. I have the great pleasure of walking through the report findings with everyone. Just as a reminder, the report is on the Inatai's website, and all of these graphs are available in the report as well. So there are 5 key findings that we will talk through today. These findings are not necessarily exhaustive, so do also want to direct you to the report where there are additional details, but we're excited to share high level what we found through our surveys and conversations. Next slide, please. So the first finding is around Inatai really putting grantees first. Grantees that we spoke with shared that first, Inatai's application process felt simple and flexible, and that this reflected Inatai's value of grantees' time. One grantee shared that the foundation has simplified the process so that it's not overwhelming and not cumbersome. The second is that grantees share the perspective that Inatai's grant-making approach is innovative and effective. And one of the things that makes this approach innovative is really this people-first approach. Grantees also shared that there's a lot of appreciation for unrestricted general operating funds, that this flexibility is critical for organizations to be able to respond to the needs of their organizations and the communities that they serve. One grantee shared, quote, Inatai focuses on sustainability as part of its grant making. Other funders could learn from and implement this focus into their grant making strategy, which we'll talk about more in a minute. So this people first approach with the folks who we spoke with really echoed that this approach to relationship building and grant making, both having a focus on the people and the structures that allow grantees to move more nimbly and use their time effectively, makes it possible to build trusted relationships with Inatai staff from the beginning of the engagement. Next slide. Oh, sorry, can we go back one slide? My apologies. There's one more piece to this that I wanted to share. Grantees shared that they felt like Inatai saw them as experts in their own communities, and that they really felt like they were being consulted as partners, and that really engendered more trust in the Inatai staff. A couple of areas of growth that grantees identified in this area is opportunities for setting clear expectations around the grants and in grantee engagement, and clarity around Inatai's grant-making structures and priority areas, so that grantees better understand both the fundraising priorities and the grant-making process. And this is as ongoing work as the work continues to shift and grow. Next slide. So the second area that we asked grantees about was around values alignment and communication. So the foundation really wanted to understand the extent to which the staff is living into the organization's stated values. And overall, we found that there is tremendous values alignment between Inatai and its grantees. As Nicole shared, 96% of multi-year grantees said that Inatai's commitment to racial justice is clear in the way staff shows up. Also, to echo again, Nicole, what you shared, that there's more work to do to engage Black and Native leaders and those in larger cities in how Inatai can continue to live into its racial justice commitment. Those groups were the groups that were less likely to say that Inatai was completely aligned in that value. The other top 3 values that resonated with grantees included the value of self-determination, the value of practicing joy in community, and the value of collective liberation. In communication, in the area of communication, there was a lot of appreciation for the autonomy that Inatai gives its grantee partners. So there's not a lot of overwhelming communication, a lot of asks, and overall, Inatai's communication style was described as hands-off. And at the same time, as we'll hear moving forward, there's also interest in being engaged in specific ways within the grantee community. And new grantees in particular are more likely to desire more communication with Inatai. As we were reflecting on this finding, we really came to understand that the importance of building those relationships early on, and that there's a desire to understand how Inatai works, and again, what the priorities are, particularly for grantees who are just getting to know the foundation. Next slide, please. The third finding is really around Inatai's priority around power building and community. So we found that Inatai's investments in community and power building are welcome, and there's energy for more. 3 out of 5 grantees agreed that Inatai provides great network and learning opportunities that go beyond just the grants. And in particular, 89% of BIPOC-led organizations are interested in seeing more networking opportunities through Inatai. So we're seeing that there is a lot of enthusiasm for BIPOC-led organizations in particular to come together. Grantees also echoed that they're interested in more learning and skill building opportunities, particularly to support organizational sustainability. So what this means is that organizations are interested in learning more and building greater skills around things like technology, accounting, and evaluation, for example. And see Inatai as a great resource for helping to facilitate this learning. Grantees also highlighted the need for regional networking and networking focused on shared issue areas. So as evaluators, what this tells us is that Inatai is building community among the grantees that are a part of the Inatai ecosystem, and that there's great energy from grantees to learn with and from each other, particularly across shared issue areas and in specific regions. Grantees underscored that expanding support to underrepresented and underfunded organizations is critical to continuing to build power, voice, and representation. Next slide. In this spirit, the respondents that we spoke with shared that the 501c3 funding that Inatai provides to nonprofit organizations is critical, and 501c4 organizations, the funding that Inatai provides for 501c4 organizations is absolutely invaluable for continuing to support politically focused work. This politically focused work, particularly for BIPOC-led organizations, is critical to building power. For the fourth finding, we wanted to reflect what we heard from Inatai's staff specifically. So we know that Inatai staff is working very hard to show up in these values, and we wanted to better understand their experience as well. So Inatai has grown very rapidly over the last several years, and the staff are really excited about this growth and also are excited to continue to build their skills as new folks come on board. In addition, when we spoke with board members are also excited to stay in a learning mode, specifically around strengthening and activating their power building skills and learning and adopting effective conflict resolution skills. So the board is also very excited to continue to lean in how they're learning as well. Next slide. Oh, back one, please. Thank you. The staff are very excited to continue building relationships with grantees, and the prioritization per the first finding of centering on relationships and people first is really a reflection of a unified vision among the staff to be in deep relationship with grantees. And there's an acknowledgement that relationship building takes time. And so we heard from grantees that, we heard from Inatai staff that they're interested in the organization building more systems and processes that would allow them more time for relationship building. They're also interested in connecting grantees with other parts of the foundation to create a unified experience. So this could include learning about Inatai's public policy work or learning and evaluation work. In addition, the rapid growth can often lead to a very busy pace of work. And so we heard from staff that slowing down the current pace of work is necessary to create time for more relationship building. And finally, in almost every conversation we had, grantees in particular shared that they hope that other funders can continue to learn from and adopt some of the practices that Inatai Foundation is using, putting relationships first, making grant-making processes easier, facilitating networking learning opportunities. These are all things that the organizations and leaders that we spoke with are excited to see from other funders as well. And so there was excitement for how the Inatai Foundation can influence the field. Some ideas that were surfaced were really to create some venues to share Inatai's grant-making approach with other funders. These are sometimes called funder collaboratives or other convenings of funders. A few of the folks we spoke with highlighted how this would have the added benefit of exposing grantees to other potential funding opportunities as well. And grantees highlighted that this is an opportunity for the Inatai Foundation to further establish itself as a leader in philanthropy and continue to ask the question of how the foundation shares its practices, values, and perspectives with other funders. Those are our top line findings. I know we'll have some time later to engage, but for now, I will pass it over to Emma.
Thank you, Amber, and much gratitude to the entire team for guiding us through the evaluation results. Everyone in attendance today should have also received a link to the full report in a reminder email about today's gathering. We hope you find this report as insightful and helpful as we do in understanding how grantees have experienced our foundation. From the moment that we received these findings, leadership at Inatai have been making connections toward how we best integrate this learning into our work. One champion of this effort is our Vice President of Programs, Stephen Cole-Schwartz. As Vice President, Stephen is responsible for the vision, development, and implementation of a range of grant-making, leadership, and power-building strategies. Stephen has been nationally recognized for moving philanthropy toward greater investment in people and communities. Immediately prior to his leadership at Inatai, he served as the executive director of the Partnership Funds, a funder collaborative dedicated to winning independent political power in states across the country. Stephen, his husband, and their dog take every opportunity to travel throughout Washington state as they have moved to our state following more than 15 years in the District of Columbia. Thank you for joining us today to share about how we are receiving and acting upon these findings.
Thank you so much, Emma. Clarity is the word that rings in my mind when I reflect on these evaluation results. In so many aspects of the findings, it seems that Inatai's intent in our work was clear to organizations we fund, and more often than not, it seems that our impact reflects that intent. When we are clear about our values and our intentions, we become more accessible and more accountable. These evaluation findings suggest that as we move forward, we have to continue to share openly and share honestly about our goals, our direction, and our progress as we go. As Nicole said at the top, we're in a moment of change as an organization. So there's just no better time to be clear than right now. I'm deeply thankful to Frontline Solutions team for the chance to understand our impact and for the chance to share with y'all what comes next. As Emma said, I am Stephen. I have the privilege of serving as Vice President of Programs at Inatai. In my role, I work with this wonderful, diverse team of leaders inside the organization to oversee our grant-making practices and several grant strategies. I'm a guest on the lands of the Duwamish and the Suquamish people today. I use he and him pronouns. I'm a queer white man with brown eyes and brown hair, but my head is shaved, so you'd have to look at my scruff and my mustache to tell that I'm a brunette. I'm wearing a blazer with a flower lapel pin, and I'm sitting in front of a blurred background in an open office today. Just like clear visual descriptions create a greater opportunity for access, so too should our response to these findings create greater access to us among the organizations and the communities that we are accountable to. Emma asked me to share some of Inatai's collective and initial responses to the evaluation findings, and I will do my best on behalf of this big team. But before I do, we want to emphasize these findings actually reflect and they deepen the feedback that grantee organizations offer to their program officers, to me, to Inatai leaders every single day. So much of what I'll share about our response to the evaluation is already underway. And that was made possible by open, trusting, and ongoing dialogue with you. That happens before, that happens as part of, and that will continue to happen after this evaluation. Thank you for the guidance. All right, let's show some slides. In response to these findings, Inatai plans to first strengthen our growing team. Folks asked for more connection, more frequent communication, and more ways to stay informed and engaged. We hear ya. Just 3 years ago, we had only 3 program officers holding relationships with more than 200 organizations, while also doing the work of building culture and building our organization. Thankfully, we have grown quite a bit since then. But even so, we are still building our team. We continue to take our time to hire knowledgeable, relationship-focused team members all throughout our state. As we grow, we are organizing our work to better keep up with organizations we already support. And we'll be testing out new methods of communicating with grantees about our priorities and learning about yours. At the same time, we are slowing down the pace of funding for new organizations. While we will still fund some new groups each year, we will be more focused on deepening our understanding and our relationships with existing grantees. That is important to us as we determine who we will continue funding now that we are clearer about our vision and our direction as an organization. Second, we will host more and different convenings and meetings. It is affirming to hear that so many organizations and leaders agree with us about the importance of events and gatherings for making connection, for identifying collective goals, and for sharing our knowledge and skills with one another. In the coming 2 to 3 years, we are going to try several different types of in-person and virtual gatherings. The thing I'm most excited to try personally is consistent with the evaluation findings. It's to organize a few meetings and events around specific geographies. Later this year, we'll host our first 2 regional gatherings with grantee leaders. We are going to gather in regions of Washington where philanthropy does not usually host meetings. And our goal will be to connect more deeply with the people whose communities live and work there. As part of those meetings, we hope to invite partner funders to join us in order to learn with and from the amazing organizations we get to support. Third, we heard the call to support organizations beyond grant dollars. Many organizations that we fund have tended to be newer, smaller, or just beginning to grow. We hear from grantees the need for supports beyond grant-making dollars. Often, this looks like support for capacity building. We are actually building a capacity building program, and we're really excited about it. We are taking these steps with caution and gaining lots of input along the way so we can understand our best role and an approach that works best for the organizations we support. Fourth, we heard the call to collaborate with partner funders on shared goals. And there are several suggestions throughout the report that Inatai shares its practices and approaches with other funders. We are open to considering partnerships when we have probably 4 things. First, when we have something to contribute ourselves. Second, when we have something to learn. Third, when we believe there is a shared opportunity for action to build community power for racial justice. And fourth, when we share a commitment to working and funding in places that have been overlooked by philanthropy. In our first years, we were focused on building relationships with leaders and organizations throughout the state. I believe we are now ready for more collaboration with our peer funders. We have agreed to communicate our funding priorities more clearly and consistently going forward. Our first few years, as I said, were spent listening, learning, and then readjusting our work accordingly. While we will always consider ourselves a learning organization, we do have enough information, including from this evaluation, to be more focused in future years. As Nicole shared earlier, we now have a 50-year vision. We will be sharing more with you later this year as we begin implementation of that work. And finally, among these priorities is to prioritize funding for BIPOC-led 501c4 organizing and infrastructure. We will be learning and sharing more about the power of 501c4 capacity, organizations, and infrastructure. We hope to create the conditions in which community organizations who are committed to racial justice can participate most fully and more effectively in power and in politics in Washington and beyond. Inatai's long-term vision will guide our ongoing efforts. It is rooted in the learning and the lessons that we were gifted by grantees. It's our responsibility to honor that history. It was this group of grantees that challenged us to put community power for the purpose of racial justice at the very center of our mission and our vision. To us, this is a single concept: community power to advance racial justice, not something we break into separate components and fund differently. Honoring this history and this wisdom means taking the guidance seriously. Inatai's grant-making dollars are for building community power for racial justice, full stop. We will focus on that as we make decisions and communicate about future grants, including those times when we conclude grants with organizations that are not building community power to advance racial justice. Nicole said that pursuing our mission may mean that we lose friends. I really, really hope that we don't. But we're prepared for the possibility, if it is a consequence of knowing our role and playing our part well, and in service of the people we are accountable to, who demand of us ongoing clarity in word and in action. Thank you again for this feedback, for this opportunity, for this guidance, and for the chance to grow together. Emma, I'm going to hand it back to you. Thank you so much.
Limt, thank you, Stephen, for sharing the latest on what we're doing to put our evaluation learning into action. So this is a time where, all of our attendees have gotten the chance, hopefully, to see the written report, or maybe they'll pore over that more closely following this gathering. But we have had the presentation from the Frontline Solutions team, wonderful remarks from Nicole at the start. Stephen, we've had your remarks. This is the time we hope that some Q&A questions start pouring in. So if you haven't had the chance to ask your question yet, please hit the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to be able to share it with us. I am going to try to keep an eye on them, and we have really great Inatai team members that are helping support us being able to surface your questions. Now I'd like to welcome back the team from Frontline Solutions so that we can all be together here during this Q&A. Wonderful. Great. Okay, so I am going to help support both verbalizing our questions that we've received and directing those to the appropriate party, in which in some cases might also be myself. The first question that we have is as following. Philanthropic, this is a question for you, Stephen. Philanthropic funding to Indigenous-led and Indigenous-serving organizations is a fraction of overall giving in the sector. Thank you for working to amplify those funds and to change that trajectory. Beyond the suggestions in the report from grantees, what do you see as near-term opportunities to shift other philanthropic organizations to follow your lead?
Thank you, Emma. And yeah, thanks for this question. For other funders, it's forming and building and nurturing relationships, first with Indigenous leaders in philanthropy. One of our values is the 7-generation principle, which acknowledges that in order to understand, much less to address an issue, we have to look 3 generations in our rearview mirror to understand our present and to craft action that will impact the world ahead of us 3 generations down the road. With that in mind, we continue to build relationships to better understand where philanthropy has and continues to fail to serve tribal people, tribal nations, Indigenous folks, and Native-led organizations, all of which we try to understand in their many different ways in which those governments and organizations exist. We have a lot to continue learning ourselves. And our recommendation for other funders starts with the basics. Just begin to form relationships today that would foster trusting partnerships in the future. As the saying goes, progress only moves at the speed of trust. We are going to use every opportunity we can in philanthropic affinity groups, in partnerships with other funders, and in the work that we do to continue fostering our own relationships and to encourage other organizations to build the relationships that they need for themselves to do this work successfully in the future.
Thank you, Stephen. I just had a moment where my screens went blank. So that must have been the mic drop from your response to that question. I am back online, and this next question is probably best for me to respond to. And the question is, how did you prepare the Inatai team to view the evaluation findings as progress and not punishment? How were the Inatai team and its grantee partners involved in designing the evaluation or making meaning of the evaluation findings? So thank you for this 2-part question. First of all, it's important for our team to know that assessment is not punitive, but really purely an opportunity for growth. I have emphasized that my own perspective of evaluation results and assessment as really something, information to metabolize that can really nourish us and energize us for the work ahead. We had leaders share that from day one, that's our sort of expected culture around evaluation. And we've just really ensured that we've had an evaluation partner that felt the same. So gratitude to Frontline Solutions there. We created an internal team that included grant-making staff to help co-design the questions with Frontline. And for the survey, we didn't co-design the questions with grantees, but absolutely plan to do so in the future for subsequent evaluations. And really overall, the hope is that this conversation is an opening for Inatai and its partners just to make meaning of these findings together and just to continue to work closely together with external evaluation support to be able to really have the questions and the guidance needed to shape our future evaluations. Up next, a question for Stephen. Excited about the support for grantee organizations building capacity. How will that work? Kind of what's the process there?
That's a really good question. Our team has formed a task force internally under the guidance of 2 of our most experienced grant makers to explore what it is that organizations and leaders are most commonly requesting and the types of capacity building supports that might be the most valuable in supporting community power for racial justice among a broad range of organizations. Right now, we are still in an exploratory phase. My advice to any current grantee is to inform your program officer as openly as you feel comfortable about your capacity needs and your interests going forward. I can't promise that that volunteering this information is going to result immediately in capacity building support, but I can tell you that that information is going to inform the way in which we develop our program. That's important because we have seen so many, and I have personally experienced as an ED myself, capacity building and technical assistance programs that deliver support in either unhelpful ways or deliver support that we thought we needed and didn't actually value in the end. And when I say that we are trying to be cautious about the way in which we build this, we can only be cautious if we have good information from the organizations we're working with. So please raise your hand and tell your primary program officer what would support you going forward.
Thank you, Stephen. Another question that we have for Inatai is, would you please share a little more about your new goals of prioritizing funding for 501c4 organizations' infrastructure? Thank you again for sharing.
Girl, are you going to keep me on this hot seat? The first thing I would say is this is not a new goal, but it is one on which we are putting greater emphasis and greater focus going forward. Inatai has always been a 501c4 organization ourselves, which means we have always had the sort of flavor of resources that we can distribute to organizations focused directly on political change and using a broader range of tools than only 501c3 restricted resources. When I say that we are continuing to focus on this in the future, I mean, we hope to increase the amount of our total giving year over year by percentage of total grants, the total number of grants to 501c4 organizations that are led by, rooted in, and serving BIPOC people, families, and communities, and to figure out how we continue creating the conditions for more of these organizations to be founded, to grow, to thrive, and to contest for political power.
Thank you, Stephen. I think I'm going to get to take you out of the hot seat at this time. We have a last question, and it's more of a question about how do we access or see this webinar again at a later date if needed. The person who asked this question hired a new assistant director, yay, who because of short notice wasn't able to attend the webinar, and we've got you covered. We will be posting this webinar to the web. And it will be in a website that we're going to go ahead and drop into the chat. And I believe we'll also be emailing it to folks afterwards. So feel free to view again and again. And we're so grateful to just everyone who's been able to be here for this live conversation. If your question didn't get answered today during this time, I wanted to let you know that sort of the channels for those questions and communication are still open. So immediately following this meeting, every attendee will receive an email with the link to a short survey. Please use this survey to provide feedback on our time together today. And if you have any other questions, you can feel free to reach out to me directly. That would be questions regarding the evaluation. If you're interested in learning more about the ongoing work of our research division, please feel free to contact me. My email is Emma, N as in noise, @inatai.org. And I just want to give the biggest thank you, Lean Limped, Amber, Chanel, Hafiza, and Ashley behind the scenes for taking time to sit with us as people raised questions today. Thank you, Stephen, for your responses to the great questions attendees had for our Inatai team. And thank you, of course, to everyone who provided questions today, everyone here, all of our friends and relatives. We are so grateful that you joined us and that you showed us that it is worthwhile to take this time to really publicly have a conversation about what we're learning through evaluation. In closing, I would like to extend truly my deepest gratitude to those that provided survey responses and interviews to be able to inform the findings that were shared here today. You know who you are, even if I do not, and our Inatai team does not. And I hope that you'll continue to support our learning in years to come. Your perspective and honesty motivates us and energizes us as we continue to learn and grow. Limped, thank you.